start with Joy. Tell me about Joy.
What brings you joy?
What
Carol?
brings me joy? Being retired.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Not having to work. I don't know how I had time to go to work. I'm busier now than I've ever have been.
I went right from managing an office into putting on a quilt show. I did that for a couple of years. And then I ended up being the program chair for the guild. And I'm going, no, wait a minute. And Larry's going, Carol, you can't go to another meeting now. I can't miss it. So, yeah.
So, how long you been quilting?
I started in 1979 when I met my husband, and he talked about his grandmother's quilts. And I was always a crafty person. You know, I'm crafty.
That has a different meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the innuendo.
Yeah.
So anyway, he kept talking about his grandmother's beautiful quilts, and I wasn't working at the time. I was putting up with 4 children, so 2 of them I didn't
Put your nose in
know.
a quilt and forget about the kids.
Yeah, that's basically it was an escape.
Yeah.
But I told him one day when he came home from work, I'm going to start an ambitious project. I'm going to make a quilt. And from that very first quilt, I was hooked. And it's an addiction.
Anybody that knows you knows that you love to quilt and you enter them in shows and
Yes.
so yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Sue came up to me at one of the gatherings here, and she says, Carol, my stepbrother's wife, I think it was so excited when she found out you were going to be here. And I said, what? I don't know her. And she says, well, it's actually her mother. And I said, her mother is excited about meeting me? And she says, yes. And I said, why? And she says, well, she's seen your quilts. And I was just totally blown away because I'm egotistical enough to want to show my quilts, but I don't realize what kind of pleasure other people get.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that's enough about me. I want to know about you.
Well,
what have you been doing since you retired?
Yeah. One of the joys that I have is and I've been doing this a long time. I started in 1975 rock climbing.
Yeah.
You know, and I just love doing it. I'm not as good as I used to be, you know.
Yeah.
You're probably not as good a quilter as you used to be.
Actually, I'm better. I learned everything I was doing wrong.
Yeah. But you know, my son, he climbs and his wife climbs, so you know, it's just kind of a family thing that we do, and I just really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
that's something I bet Crystal's son Ashton would really love.
Probably.
That kid's a monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then fly fishing, which I learned a lot from your dad.
I know.
Uncle Walt.
Yeah.
He kind of introduced me in a way,
right.
and had the passion, and
Yeah.
it spurred me.
He also got Bev's husband Paul Rod into it. Yeah.
And I fish with Rod quite a bit.
Yeah. And one of Larry's fondest memories is of you fishing when we went on the trip to Arizona, and he found out how much you fished.
Oh.
And he saw pictures of you with your big fish. He was impressed with that because he's a big fisherman.
I've caught some big fish.
You what?
I have caught some big fish. You know, when I was working, it seemed like I didn't really have time to putter around the house and do maintenance stuff and improvements. But now that I'm retired and I live in this older house in Superior, it's 100 years old, it seems like if I don't do that stuff, the place will fall down. So,
That's true.
It has really become a passion because I like puttering around and fixing things and you know, I'm very proud of the work that I've done, and some of it's visible, some of it isn't.
Right.
But I kind of get off on that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I can understand that. When we moved into our house 46 years ago, there wasn't a tree or a bush anywhere around the house, and the house itself was very poorly made, but it was what we could afford.
Yeah.
And we had 4 kids, and we needed to have some place to call our own. But Dad came down and taught me how to do rock work. And for several years after that, every time I'd take my vacation, and I had a mental job, but on vacation, I became a rock builder.
Yeah.
And I built rock walls and rock sidewalks.
You became a stonemason.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Although it's very amateur, and you can tell that it wasn't done by a professional. But everybody that comes into the yard is impressed with all the rock work that I did. So that became a passion of mine. And now that Larry is not doing so well and can't get out and do yard work a lot, in the spring and in the fall, I'll go out and try to make it to where it's easier to maintain. So that's.
Are you having fun with it though?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. One thing I did. My youngest daughter turned 50 2 years ago in September, and there was all kinds of discussion as to where she was going to have her birthday party. I said, wherever you have it, I'm going to be there. So she finally decided, well, we're going to have it at your house. Now, September, Fresno, 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's going to be warm.
So, and we have all kinds of grandkids and great grandkids, and I'm thinking, well, we got to have something to do for them to get cool. So I went to the nearest water slide rental place, and tried to rent a water slide, and they said no, we can't. The price was reasonable, but they wouldn't come to our house because it was too far out.
Too far out.
So I went to Costco, and they had a 12 by 22 foot above ground pool on sale for $700. So I went home and I told Larry, I said, well, can't get a water slide, but they have this pool. And he said, well, why didn't you buy it? So I go back into town, buy the pool. Now I've got to level out the backyard and bring in decomposed granite to lay as a base.
Yeah, yeah.
And set up the pool. And his youngest son helped a little bit. He brought in the granite for me and bought me a leveler. And I put that pool up all by myself.
Wow.
And
Very impressive.
I had to ask him.
At your age, that is impressive.
Yeah, I know. I was only 20 then.
Oh, okay.
But I needed help for the last joint because I couldn't hold one up and get the other one connected. So I had him come out and hold that up. But, the whole family came for the birthday party, and I've got a picture wall of all the fun that everybody had that day, and it made me feel really good.
What are we grateful for?
Good health.
Yeah, same here. I see all the people around me that have health issues, and I really don't have anything to complain about. So.
I'm the only healthy person in our generation of Larry's family. Now my family is all healthy. Walt's doing fantastic at 85. But sometimes it gets a little bit depressing being the only healthy person. Because, you want to do things with people and they can't do it. So,
just got to make other friends.
Well, I
know that's hard for you, but
yeah, it really is. I'm so quiet and shy.
Yeah, you're not outgoing really at all.
No,
Around me, you're okay, but I've seen.
Well, that's because I can put you down and you don't do it. you don't go back at me. I mean, you do. But...
I do, but and
I don't know who starts it.
I think it's you.
Probably. I'm the instigator.
Yeah.
In my family, I'm known as the one it's always my fault. No matter what happens, it's my fault. And I say, well, I got broad shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a story when I was a kid.
Yeah. That was a long time
like
ago.
6 or 7 years old, and I had just learned some really bad words. Okay? And I found a marker that I could write these words.
Yeah.
And I was writing them everywhere. On the sidewalk, on somebody's fence. I wrote them on the inside of the backyard fence at our house. And this is like on a Wednesday or something, and it was Saturday or Sunday or something, and I was inside, and my mom was out back mowing the yard. Yeah. And she goes around the corner, and I hear the mower turn off, and she says, I can hear her. To this day, I can hear her say it. Where is that kid? And I knew I was in trouble. So she comes in and she goes, come here. I'm going to show you something. I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
I knew what she was going to show me. And we go around the corner of this fence, and there's these 3 words. And she goes, did you write this? I said, no, Paul did. Well, he was only 2. So she knew I was lying.
Really?
She knew it.
How did she figure that out?
She says, we're going to call your father. He's at work, but we're going to call your father. And you're going to tell him over the phone the words that you wrote. Oh my gosh. It was the worst punishment I had ever thought I could endure. And so I was crying, and I go, Dad, I wrote shit ass fucker. I couldn't say the words, And I'm sure that they were just laughing their asses off about it,
Your mom would have been.
Yeah.
I stole something that your mom said one time. When you and Bev were little and we were over at Mammoth Lakes, and your mom had the 2 of you, and a woman approached her and she says, oh, they're just so cute. Are they twins? And she says, no, they're 6 months apart, or 3 months apart, or something like that. It was 3 months. Well, when I met Larry, he had 2 boys, and I had my 2 girls. And Michelle and Ed were 6 months apart. But their coloring, they look like they could be natural brother and sister.
Yeah.
So people would ask me about my kids, and I tell them, I said, well, I have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and 2 6-year-olds or whatever it was. And they say, oh, twins? And I say, no, they're 6 months apart.
Huh?
I loved your mom. She was cool. She was really funny.
So I would say one of the things I'm really grateful for is not only my health, but having a son and his wife who look forward to and enjoy spending time with both me and my wife Laurel. Mm-hmm. That means so much.
Yeah.
I see parents, their kids, they don't visit very much. They don't see each other. They don't talk really. And I think, what a shame, But so I feel very fortunate that.
As you should.
Yeah.
We're also fortunate. Michelle, I can come up to Michelle's when it gets too hot in Fresno, or I can come up and stay with Michelle and the whole family, even her stepdaughters. Treat me like gold, and they make me feel very welcome.
So you leave Larry in the heat?
Yeah. He's got an air conditioner. Anyway.
I don't know if I really like you. You treat my buddy Larry like that.
He says the same thing. But his boys, when we got married, he had the 2 boys, and I was used to having my own girls, and he says, well, he says, I go hunting every weekend, and sometimes during the middle of the week. And I said, well, that's all right. I'm used to being alone with my girls. Well, little did I know, boys are very different than girls. And my girls were
You didn't know
easy.
that?
No. My mother neglected that information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
different.
So anyway, his oldest son resented me. And I kind of resented him too, because all of a sudden I'm left with 4 kids all week long. He goes off on weekends and I'm there with 4 kids. I thought he would take his boys with him when he went hunting. What's wrong? Anyway, and we fought, and I felt guilty because I'm the adult and I shouldn't be fighting with a 9-year-old, but it started leveling out, and right now what I'm really grateful for is both those boys. I'm mom, and they love me to death, and they will do anything for me. And the reason I can come away when Larry and leave Larry at home in the heat is because they will come up and they will help him with the yard and make sure that he's okay.
You need to stay away more often.
Well, actually, I need to be home more often. Yeah. I grew up being very quiet and shy, believe it or not. Very unsure of myself. And it took me a long time to get over it. And part of the reason it took me so long was I went from being insecure around my own family to marrying a man that not only was out to sea all the time, but didn't seem to be that all that interested in me. So I thought, there must be something really wrong with me. But when I met Larry, and he was obviously very interested in me, and not just physically, but mentally.
You as a person?
Me as a person. Believe it or not, people like me.
I believe it. I believe it.
But he brought me out of my shell and made me realize that I had worth. So I'm grateful for that.
20 years old. I was in college at the time when I was 20.
Yeah.
And I was starting to really starting to excel in school. I got better and better at it as I gained experience in lecture halls and completing projects and doing homework and that sort of thing. And so I really gained a lot of confidence as an engineer.
Right.
In college still,
Yeah.
And I would tell my 20-year-old self, just be more confident. Kind of like you,
Yeah.
in high school, I was a wallflower. I mean, I blended in with the furniture.
Right.
It was. I go to high school reunions now, and I see high school friends, and they don't even know who I am.
Yeah. I right after I got out of high school, I went to junior college for one semester. But I ran into a girl that I had gone to school with. And she looked at me and she says, Carol, she says, I can't believe the difference in you. She says, I thought when we were in high school that if I walked up to you and said hello, you'd start crying. And I wasn't that person anymore. But
when you walk up to me and say hello, I cry.
And I tremble. I quake in my little boots.
All right. Well, that's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
a pretty good conversation, I think.
Thank you both so much.
You bet.
That was what we did.
Yeah.
That's how I graduated from high school. Like
Yeah.
everybody ate outside the music building.
Yeah,
But
so
it wasn't that large a school.
it was fun watching how everyone interacted in the little niches that they found and how they tried to hide. High schools are mean places to be. They're not friendly.
All right, I got questions for you too.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now in your life, what's something that you do or that brings you joy?